In anticipation of Tears of Kingdom, we decided to create a list of games released in recent years that were inspired by Zelda in some way. However, we had to consider which type of Zelda games to focus on. Should we look at the open world of Breath of the Wild, the curious mechanics of Majora's Mask, or the traditional gameplay of a classic Zelda game? As there are so many different types of Zeldas, we separated the list into parts and took the opportunity to explain what makes each type of game special to us. And Zelda, Zelda, Zelda. You'll be hearing the name Zelda quite a bit throughout the video, so get ready. This is the B-side of April, games inspired by Zelda. When many people think of Zelda, they immediately picture Link viewed from above. More so than the 3D Zelda games. Some of my strongest Zelda memories are of carefully arranged screens, the impact and sense of adventure when transitioning to new areas, and the simple and precise combat when you can see all the scene's information. This same elegant simplicity has made it one of the favorite models for indie games. Anodyne is one of my favorite game series, and although the second game has a more 3D feel with some 2D sections, it is the first game that is more reminiscent of the classic Zelda games. The puzzles with their broom mechanics, the structure of the world, and the dungeons all evoke the Zelda experience we are used to, but the tone and themes make Anodyne its own thing. Minit is more daring, a Zelda-like game where you have only 1 minute to leave home and explore before having to repeat the process. If a minute seems like a short amount of time, Minit shows that our perception of time is relative. Minute by minute, the game constructs an adventure that feels grand and expansive, even if it's in small pieces. It's a bit like Majora's Mask, isn't it? We'll talk more about that later. TUNIC not only plays with the mechanics and structure of a classic Zelda game, but also with the very nature of games from that era. An important aspect of the game is its manual, like those that came with cartridges in the past, but written in a fictional language that explains everything you need to know about the game world, if only you could read what's written. It's the feeling of being a child and playing an entire game in Japanese without ever having learned a word. A not so rare experience for us Brazilians, and only deducing the meaning from the context while experimenting with the mechanics and world of the game. Eastward draws heavily from the well of Zelda games to build its mechanics and dungeons, but let's be honest, the strength of the game lies in its pixel art style, which is reminiscent of a grown-up Earthbound, and its narrative, focused on the emotional relationship between John and Sam as they discover what the world can offer them, as well as what has been taken from them. It is a beautiful little game in more ways than one, produced by devs from Shanghai with a very delicate charm, even if some things don't quite fit in by the end. By adapting the 2D structure to a fully 3D world, Ocarina of Time not only set the standard for action-adventure games, but also became a landmark in video game history and a reference for various genres that would emerge only a few years later. Kena Bridge of Spirits follows the traditional 3D Zelda format quite closely. It is divided into large areas, each containing a mechanic to be unlocked for use in both puzzle solving and combat against enemies and bosses, as well as for navigation. Explore a beautiful world, fight against corruption in simple but challenging and fun combat, and interact with and command the rots, adorable creatures that will help you on your journey to the sacred sanctuary atop the mountain. Hidetaka Miyazaki, the creator of Demon's Souls, once said that Zelda was an inspiration for the Souls-like genre, as he considered the franchise to be a reference book for 3D action games. And perhaps one of the easiest games to see this correlation is Chronos Before the Ashes. A boy wielding a sword and shield must defeat a fierce beast that ravages the world. The challenging and methodical combat of the Soul series, being less punishing here, makes it easy to see the resemblance to Zelda, but it is the feeling of discovery and puzzle solving, simple but intuitive, with a characteristic sound when completed, that everything becomes quite evident. If Zelda inspired games by Fumito Ueda, such as Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, to the point where Ueda compares the giants of the PS2 classic to inverted Zelda dungeons, RiME adds another point to the aesthetic lineage, especially regarding its non-combat parts, environment puzzles and wonderful landscapes for you to explore at your own pace, all without the presence of an attack button, even though the world holds its fair share of dangers. The well-established structure since the first entry into the third dimension allowed Zelda to experiment, especially in terms of its central mechanics, always unique, interesting and innovative, and once again a source of inspiration for a series of games. Majora's Mask may be the most complex game in the franchise. A direct sequel to Ocarina of Time, it is darker and has a gameplay system based on time. Link can go back in time and relive 3 days to experience different events that directly depend on his influence on each of the game's characters' routines. Something very similar happens in Forgotten City. Trapped in a city where one sin, any sin, means the death of all its inhabitants, Forgotten City also executes Majora's Mask time mechanics excellently, but here this Groundhog Day has a Romanesque touch. Your goal is to relive the day several times to unravel the mystery behind the events in the lives of the inhabitants of the city. And believe me, if I said more than that, you would regret it. First as a mod and more recently released as a standalone game, the Forgotten City delivers much more than its visual presentation promises. If Majora's Mask's moon scared you, Outer Wilds has an entire universe to frighten you. With only 20 minutes to grab your ship and explore the planets in your galaxy, Outer Wilds creates one of the best and most impressive games of all time. And this is not just one of our normal exaggerations. Planets simulated in real time and a story about failure and discovery that moves me just by thinking about it. A necessary game. Wind Waker is probably the Zelda game that I hold dearest to my heart. It was the first one I managed to play from start to finish and made me understand why the franchise is so highly acclaimed. It is a more contemplative, calm and empty Zelda game with a navigation mechanic that takes us to new horizons, towards greater freedom to explore the worlds offered by this series. Venture out by sailing to various islands in unexplored seas, in a world full of dangers and secrets, fight monsters, learn to use magic, and discover ancient treasures that will help you overcome the challenges on your journey. Start as a boy and become a legend. This could be a description of Wind Waker, but it's actually Oceanhorn, Monster of Uncharted Seas, a game that draws inspiration, perhaps a little too much, from Zelda's legacy. Wind Waker also innovated in its visuals, bringing what is for me the most charismatic and expressive Link in the entire franchise. Although misunderstood at the time, the visual style adopted ended up being more emphasized and replicated in various games over the years, as happened in Alba, a wildlife adventure. A grateful adventure that delights through the charisma of its protagonist and its world. You will record the flora and fauna of an island through photos, with the goal of collecting signatures for a petition and trying to prevent the construction of a luxury hotel on top of a nature reserve. Few structural elements of Zelda are present in Alba, but just exploring this island a little will make you feel this connection flow. The natural path for the Zelda series was clear, an open world. But of course, it couldn't be just any open world. Breath of the Wild revolutionizes with a less directed experience driven by the player's curiosity, presenting all its tools from the beginning and making experimentation and creativity reign in the exploration, in a new vision at the time of what it meant to be an open world game, like in Sable. Sable is a journey of discovery. There is no right direction to follow, and your objectives are not clearly presented. Everything depends on your curiosity. A young woman determined to find her purpose decides to wander aimlessly through the desert, get to know the environment, interact with people, and explore an open world that is empty but at the same time so rich and interesting. There is no combat in Sable, but all interactions with the world are in a way significant and can and should be done at your own pace and in your own way. Lil Gator Game not only looks like a cuter version of Zelda starring an alligator, but it also considers the influence of the franchise diegetically, within the story and its characters. You see, the little alligator is a big fan of a game franchise called Hero of Legend, which exists within the universe of Lil Gator Game. While waiting for a sequel to be released, he and his sister create a similar make-believe game with wooden swords and cardboard monsters. And that's where we, the players, come in, to help make this game more real. It's a short but exciting experience, evoking not only the curiosity and nostalgia of Zelda, but also of childhood itself. We talked about some of the best Zelda games in the franchise, as well as some games that were inspired by them. But even Zelda has its forgotten gems and abandoned experiments that, although a small part of the franchise, were influential in their own way. In the second game of the franchise, Zelda takes a path that diverges completely from the first success on the NES. Zelda 2 is a 2D side-scrolling game with RPG elements and plenty of platforms for you to jump on and get frustrated. Although the idea was ultimately abandoned, many of the series' most famous elements came from it, such as the Triforce of Courage and Dark Link. And if you think Shovel Knight's Down Thrust has some similarity to this, it might not be a coincidence. On the Nintendo 3DS, A Link Between Worlds is a brilliant game and often ranks high on lists of the best games in the franchise. A good portion of this is due to its inventive puzzles and challenges, thanks to the glorious mechanic of merging with walls. It may seem like a small thing at first glance, but it is implemented holistically into the game, transforming the experience completely. This is a mechanic that we wish had inspired more games, at least while we wait for the release of the Plucky Squire. The Renegade Children, the infamous CDI games.
Isn't it beautiful? No.
Developed outside of Nintendo, and including one of the few games that features Zelda as the protagonist in the franchise, named after her. These games are like train wrecks, considered non-canon even by Aonuma, currently the producer of Tears of the Kingdom, and with the best or worst FMVs you've ever seen, depending on your sensitivity to things that are so bad that they become good. Fortunately or unfortunately, these games didn't inspire many game designers, but the Weird Trilogy at least inspired a whole online subculture that lovingly mocks its characters through memes. And that's our list. We intend to publish a list like this every month, our B-side, with different indie games around a different theme or concept. If you have suggestions, send it in our comments, and we hope you like this one. We wanted to touch on the different parts of this franchise that so many people, including many of us here, love so much. And we hope you enjoyed it too. See you all next week.